Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's been a bit of a slow content week for me, not for lack of trying. I actually have plenty of ideas written down, but just a lot of low energy days this week. I'm making some adjustments to my diet and exercise plan, I suppose. You know, I was doing maybe an hour and a half of cardio per week, but I hadn't really changed anything dietary. I was focusing more on cooking stuff at home, you know, fish, shrimp, chicken, stuff like that. But I was still having a lot of carbs. Like I had rice with almost every single one of my meals, or potatoes with every single one of my meals. And that I've definitely, dipped away from. Also snacks. I was raised in a snackers family, man. Everyone in my house just always something around at, a grab. And that's kind of carried into my adulthood. I got out of it in college, but since doing this for a living, I've let some of those old habits kind of take over again. But that's meant my energy levels they kind of have to go through an adjustment period. So it's been a lot better the past couple of days. So I've been getting some work done, but I've had other projects that I'm working on that are unrelated to YouTube that have also eaten some time. So it's just been a bit of a crazy week for me, but we do have stuff coming down the guidelines. I have verses. There's actually some Final Fantasy 11 stuff. I want to do stuff that has been requested for quite some time on the channel, but I want to finally get around to doing some of that stuff. Not to mention, I do want to finish the Ultimate Guides. I obviously have the weekly Q&A. There is a State of the Realm that we do have potentially planned. I just need to finalize our guest and make sure that we have all that stuff done. So there are a lot of little things, a lot of little parts moving, but for right now in front of us, I'm pretty hungry, so I want to get through this and go get something to eat because I got a nice steak in the fridge. Hey, listen, I'm still eating steak. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to do that right after this is done, okay? So, first of all, thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. They don't have to support the channel. Everything's available for free here on YouTube, but they choose to. So, thanks to all of them for continuing to support when they can. Anyway, with that, let's move on to some questions. All right, first question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hi. Just wondering of the off chance that any 14 character will show up at Kingdom Hearts 4. Who would you want it to be? I'm not going to lie. I don't care who shows up in Kingdom Hearts 4. I just want Kingdom Hearts 4 to be good. After really, waiting for a Kingdom Hearts game I was going to enjoy, because I didn't really want to get into Dream Drop. I didn't care for 358/2. The last one I really was okay with was Birth by Sleep. And before that, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. So when 3 was coming out, I was like, okay, hopefully a return to form. And don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game, but it certainly didn't make me... It wasn't worth the wait, and it didn't give me much optimism for how Kingdom Hearts was going to be handled going forward, especially some of the worlds in there. So I don't really care who's in Kingdom Hearts 4. I just want it to be good. So this is something like, I'm sure I could throw a name out there, but I just want Kingdom Hearts 4 to be good first and foremost. So I'm going to focus my energies into the universe on that in particular. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing well. Doing all right. With the announcement recently of Dragoon getting a rework-like thing, I'll read the rest. As someone who has only seen Monk and Summoner reworks, what kind of thing can I expect? So that hasn't been stated. What has been stated, and this has actually been stated for quite some time now, is that Dragoon is at a tipping point where there's really not much else they can do, and thus a rework becomes an imminent way of fixing that. So I do think there will be one in 7.0. I feel fairly confident in that. But what it actually means is not something that's easy to predict. Could it be something more like the 5.4 Monk changes, where they revert some of the stuff that they've just stacked on it over and over and over again, make more things baseline, or remove an element to make room for another element? Yeah, that seems within reason. I've also said with this news recently coming out regarding Dragoon hitting that tipping point, that it wouldn't be a bad time to introduce what all the Final Fantasy 11 players are asking for, is a pet wyvern. Now, I'm not saying it would be an actual pet. I think integrating it into the aesthetic is more important than it being a functional pet, which, with the way pets have gone in this game, not looking at that. But not that they couldn't do it, but there's just been so many issues with pets in the past that until I feel 100% confident that they can do a standalone pet system, I wouldn't want the wyvern to act that way. But As for what you could expect, there really is no baseline. You can look at the previous ones and try to guess it, but the way those changes have impacted those jobs is also drastically different, that using one as an example, it'd be easier to draw a comparison after the fact than to use one as an example for what to expect. Because like I said, they're just so drastically different, not just from their original selves before they were reworked, but also from each other. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Greetings, Haps. Greetings. Hello. Something I've been wondering for a while. Do we still need 80 bits for T now that we're using level 90 gear? So how does that work? Just curious how level 90 gear wouldn't sink its subsets down to be better than old level 80 raid and dungeon gear. So without having the gear values directly in front of me, I cannot answer this question. I will say need would be a strong word. I think maybe healers and tanks would feel that desire a little bit more to get access to direct hit rate, something that's far more common for them. But need, yeah, so the main reason why the 90 gear isn't always inherently better, at least I can't say it is without the pieces in front of me, is that what makes sinking down to an old item level, I guess an item level average for an actual fight, what actually makes the gear better is indeed what the substat values are. The specific thing you're looking for is if the weaker substat on the higher level gear, in this case the level 90 gear, is equal to or higher than the highest substat on the previous set, on whatever set would be used for T. Now, I actually even think that statement is slightly incorrect. I think the value actually needs to be slightly higher. But what you're essentially looking for is that when the high level piece sinks down, both of the substat values are equal to the maximum amount of substats that you would have at the item level that that piece is available. Now, it's especially important because with T, you'd be looking at a set of armor from a dungeon 2 patches later. You're not looking at the gear you actually wore when T was available. So those are the values that you need to be looking at. But without them in front of me, I couldn't say for certain that the answer to your question is yes or no. I can explain the why, but now that you know that that's what you're kind of looking for, I would look at the gear and compare it, and then you can probably make the judgment for yourself. Quick lightning round. There was a question about someone having an issue with the demo version of 14 regarding like signing up for a demo a long time ago and trying to, be on a current demo. I don't know the logistics to that. So I don't feel comfortable giving you an answer. My advice would be to go through more proper channels, more official sources to find the answer to that. Because again, I just can't offer that accurate insight. As for the question in front of us, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Well met, Mr. Happy. I'm assuming that's for last week's. Hello. Besides video games, what would you say your other favorite hobbies? I don't say I have other hobbies. I'd say I have other interests. Cooking, I would say, is an interest, but would I call it a hobby? No, I wouldn't say I'm that passionate about anything else. Not nearly to the level that I am video games. For me, video games were a source of entertainment, a source of escape, a source of inspiration. They were everything to me growing up. It was my primary escape. It has happened as such that now it has led into my livelihood, which was always my dream as a kid. But how I actually got there, I was never really sure. How I would get there, I wasn't really sure about when I was young. But yeah, I'd say I have other interests. And for me, I think with my personality, it's better to have things that I don't consider hobbies, because at this point in my life, I've taken my primary hobby and made it into a livelihood. I feel like my personality would lead to me trying to incorporate other hobbies into my livelihood, because it's just how I've always associated the two things together. So it's a bit of a weird, more psychology-based answer, but I'd say I don't have any other favorite hobbies. I just have other interests. Hello, Haps. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hi. Hello. A double hello to pay forward and a double hello back. I've seen a lot of people do the same thing for 6.1 they do every time we get story content that has obvious references to older Final Fantasy games. Oh, X and Y is going to happen because it happened in that game. Yet every single time we get a story that stands on its own while using the older games more like an Easter egg. I think there's anything about 6.1 that specifically inspires this discussion. Golbez. I mean, Golbez is there, the Four Fiends are there, and his story is something very set in stone. We can already see the baseline for his story is a bit different, but I don't see very much of it happened like this before. It has to happen like that going in the future. I do see, and to be fair, I don't dive into the depths of a lot of social channels for Final Fantasy XIV because I feel like every time I do, it drives me insane. So I try to stay away from a lot of that, to be completely honest. So what I end up seeing a lot of the time are what I feel like is a healthier way of speculating is to look at the way things played out for specific characters or in specific Final Fantasies and use that and try to think, how does that get incorporated into 14? How does Golbez fit into 14 with Zemus and Zeramis and Cain? Is there relationships that they're going to establish? And trying to use that as like a baseline expectation of other things that could appear, I think is a fair way to speculate. But when people go off and make absolutes, it's very, very tough. And let's be honest, even when we're not trying, we all sometimes speak in absolutes, even if we don't actually know, and we are just speculating because of it's just human nature to some degree. But healthy discussion looks more like what I've described and what I see more often. So while Golbez is the one inspiring it, I have yet to see some absolute statements about what has to happen and more about what could transpire. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, hi. My friends are wanting to get into 11. And I don't. I applaud you. 14 is my first only MMO. It's a pretty daunting thing about playing another MMO with 20 years of content. Would you recommend 11? I can never in good conscience recommend 11 to play as an MMO. What I can say is trying to learn enough about it to experience the story, to be able to get through the story cutscenes. That's easy enough that with a few online guides, you could properly do it. But to play it right now, even regardless of whether you're talking about classic Final Fantasy XI or modern Final Fantasy XI, the way it was 20 years ago versus the way it is now, there are still a lot of hurdles for both of them. It's just a game from a different time. So would I recommend it? No, I would never say you have to play this game. What I could say is if you can tolerate the older game design mixed in with some modern quality of life that kind of makes it better but never really fully resolves the issues you may have, that there are some good stories there. I've recently gotten to chapter 8 in their latest story, The Voracious Resurgence, something that even takes place after the finale of the game Rhapsodies of Vana'diel, and it's been pretty good so far. It's not done yet, so I'll be looking to finish that up when they finish it up sometime in the future. And so on that note, again, they're still to this day creating pretty good stories for that game. It's just done in a very old-fashioned way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Oh, here we go. Look, you did the double hello just in time. This person doesn't have a hello. Unfortunate. Made it to P4S P1 last week. I got the fight down pretty well on tank. Rarely make mistakes, punish myself at the party due to my schedule and time zone, incapable of joining consistent static, so I'm forced to pug. God bless your soul. I'm not even religious. I just say it. Just wondering on what advice you have for me being stuck in part 1 due to people joining PF that are incredibly inconsistent. That's Party Finder. The advice is to you have to try over and over until you clear. There is no other advice to have. You can't make people better magically by saying something to them. You can't mind warp into them and stop them from making a mistake. PF is a grind to get through groups that can't clear. And as much as that's probably not the answer you were looking for, as long as you're doing everything you have to do, eventually it will line up in your favor. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hope you're recovering after a rough 2 to 3 weeks. It was 13 days. Well, actually, no, we beat it on the 14th day because we beat it on the Monday. If you include the day it came out as a day, as a day 1, then day 14 would have been the Monday that we beat it. So it wasn't exactly 2 weeks. It was the day before, but it might as well have been. Post Ultimate Depression. No, now it's just trying to get my mind right at this point. My questions are as follows. 1, noticing your older videos I got recommended you had Skull's Revolver. Wondering where you might get one of those. I don't know. I got it off the internet somewhere. I have no idea where I got that thing. I got that thing when I was like 19 years old. I'm 31. I don't even have it anymore. It's back at where I grew up in New Jersey. I was about to try to ship a sword across, because that thing actually had a bit of an edge. It wasn't an all the way sharp edge, but if you swung that through something, it was dangerous. It was heavy. There was no way I was trying to fly that to California, as much as it was a cool thing to have. And question number 2, what do you think is the worst system they've ever implemented in any Final Fantasy? Mine would be H Junction. That's a tough one, because what makes a bad system bad is how much it inhibits me from playing the game. Now, I think the Junction is one of the most objectively bad systems if you look at it from its core concept to its execution to the individual elements, but it never once stopped me from enjoying 8 when I was young, and it's something I abuse now so that I can just play through the story. So in terms of its overall intention, would I consider it one of the worst failures? Yeah. But is it the one that inhibits my fun the most? No. And for me, that's the metric by which I would measure this. And that makes it tough because there's so many little things across the different Final Fantasies. I've got it. No, I do actually have it. Final Fantasy 3's fatigue system. Now, a lot like Final Fantasy 14 1.0. Well, actually, it's not anything like 1.0's. 1.0's fatigue system might actually be the worst of them all. But because we can't play that anymore, I'll go with something we can play. Final Fantasy 3's fatigue system, if you swapped jobs, you were less effective until you actually played through enough fights. So you were essentially just punished for swapping jobs often. And it could be anywhere from like, I think 3 to like 10 fights or something like that. And that's just annoying. Why? Why have that in there? It's a game that's all about flexibility and being able to swap jobs and level. But you've just fatigued it for some reason. It just never made sense to me. So you know what? That gets my vote for one of the worst systems they've ever implemented in a Final Fantasy game. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, and good tidings to you and your mother. Thank you. Hopefully you saw the update video from last week, released the same day as this video. I was wondering if you had played Hollow Knight, and if so, what were your thoughts on it? So I have. I've actually dabbled temporarily in a lot of indie games. What ends up happening with me, though, is I have to weigh playing a game and how it's a use of my time nowadays. If I want to just play a game for the sake of playing a game, it usually is at the cost of doing something that I could work on for a video, or I could live stream that might do better viewer-wise. I just have a completely different metric in my life now than I would have a decade ago in measuring what I should or shouldn't do. And with that, it's tough. It's really tough. But Hollow Knight's a fantastic game. I've played that. I've played a bit of Shovel Knight. I mean, I've played so many indie games. I could go through at least ones that I've dabbled in for an hour or two. Rogue Legacy 2 just came out. I loved Rogue Legacy 1. I beat it at least once, probably more than that. But yeah, it's just, yeah, man, good game, but I probably won't get to enjoy as many of those as I would like. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I hope you're doing well. You know what? Not a hello, but well wishes all the same. How good do you need to play a selfish DPS class, or to justify playing? I notice a lot of people seem to psychologically prefer getting buffed, even if the selfish DPS is doing more than the buff would be worth. I play Black Mage, so I've noticed if I take the caster spot, and someone in PF gets upset about not having a combat raise. If that's the one person who's dying, you know why. So the answer to this is actually slightly more complicated, I think. If you are a god tier at it, great. But you need to be as good as everyone else in your party or better. And the reason for that is that these selfish DPS jobs are designed in such a way that their RDPS contribution is, it's going to be lower than their ADPS contribution. But ideally, that is still a really high value. Black Mage and Samurais are often in the top 4 or in the top 5 or 6 of all jobs that are available. And that's the most important thing, is do you actually in your party hit that metric in that range? Or, if Samurai is the 4th highest DPS on average in a fight, and none of the jobs that are higher than that are in your party, you should be the top DPS. But if the main reason is if everyone in your party is playing at the same skill level, then that metric is consistent with how everyone should be performing, which means raid buffs are performing as if everyone was playing at that level. Hi, Aloha. You want to join? Hey, I can make you a part of this. Hey, you want to answer questions about DPS? You're a selfish DPS, Aloha. You as a cat, you are the thesis. You're not the antithesis. You are the thesis of what it means to be a selfish DPS. I'm the party giving you raid buffs right now, Aloha, and you're the samurai. Okay. Oh, that's where you want to go? All right, there you go. Be majestic. Get your butt out of the camera. Go. Go, Aloha. Go, make the jump. Make the jump. Here, I'll make it easier. Hey, there you go. Oh, he didn't like that. Oh, he got me right in the neck with his back foot. Aloha, you're going to kill me one day, you know that? I was trying to move. Hey, don't be upset with me. You're the one who kicked me in the neck. That's probably going to leave a nasty mark for later. Probably going to have to wash that after this is done. But anyway, He's the one who wanted to jump down over my shoulder. He doesn't like being held like that anyway. Yeah, as long as you're performing at that level, the same as the rest of your group, then he's going to be a part of this one. There's food in your bowl. Hey. No, you want head pats or do you want food? Because there's food in the bowl and you're getting head pats. So you got to want one or the other. Yeah, it just means that the raid buff contribution would be the same as those other jobs you're performing at. So you're performing at a level that is above those jobs. Basically, as best as you can, just don't be at a worse play level than the people around you. And it's always okay to play a selfish DPS. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Greetings. Aloha's still here, by the way. Wait, no, where'd he go? Okay, never mind. I guess well, he's in here somewhere. Hey, where'd you... Oh, there you are. Okay, he's over back there. That's fine. Greetings. Hope you're doing well. This is probably going to be a more involved question, so I'll just get to the point. How do you feel about PvE job design imbalance in the scope of Ultimates? For example, jobs that require hitting GCDs to gain resources are a bit of a disadvantage during various downtime phases, while cooldown-heavy jobs are having a multi-names day celebration for all the openers and reopeners they get to do. Specifically within roles, bards get access to multi-dotting in exchange for weaker burst and weird alignment. Dancer eats meteor circles for breakfast. Machine is just sitting in the corner counting all the heat battery lost from downtimes. So here's what I'll say. Even Ultimates, the most cutting-edge content in Final Fantasy XIV, none of that matters. You know what that matters for? That matters for how you feel while doing it. But in terms of your ability to clear, that doesn't mean jack. And realistically, that's all that matters from a design balance / imbalance standpoint. So I actually don't think it's that complicated. I think every job and every fight has different strengths and different weaknesses and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't enjoy playing that job and that fight because of these reasons, that can have an impact on how much fun you're having with the content and thus, I guess, kind of your willingness to do it or to do it on that job. So maybe we think about it from that degree, it has a pretty major impact. But in the grand scope of the game, Final Fantasy XIV job balance discussion is many times making mountains out of molehills because the difference is so negligible that it shouldn't impact anyone's decision unless it is a serious gameplay flaw. And even then, it doesn't stop those jobs from playing the content if people are playing them correctly. So that's really all there is to it. So that's my answer. And again, I don't think it was that complicated. I just had to predicate it based on how I would judge it. Oh, there was actually a follow-up at the end. A bit of a bonus question. The forums have been in quite the uproar with an overwhelming majorities of players voicing discontent. I can't take the forums that seriously, so I'll take your word for it. Yet there's been not a single utterance of any members from the community managers. As a reminder, community managers are not developers. They will not answer uproar about individual jobs or people's discontent with a specific design. They're not the developers. They can maybe convey it back to the developers, and they take the feedback, but that's it. If the developers don't have something to say, the community managers don't have something to say. It would be irresponsible for the community managers to say almost anything. Because if they say nothing, then, people go, why aren't they saying anything? But at least they're not saying anything wrong. If they say something and it's not what people want to hear, or it's even mildly worded incorrectly, then now they have to deal with that backlash on top of the dev team now usually having to step in to deal with it. Do not look for community managers to affirm the way that you feel or anyone feels about jobs or job designs. Wait for the developers to say something, and if the community managers get some sort of word from the developers and can pass it along in something that has very likely been through translations and drafts and approvals and all that, that's what you'll get, and nothing more. Right before this, there was a big question about Dancer job design, and while I could probably get into it, this version of Dancer I really like, so I don't really have much in the way of changes I would make. Maybe the improv shield being this not weirdly held thing. That's about it, really. So I decided to skip past that question because I didn't really feel like I had any insight as I was trying to actually answer it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello there, Mr. Happy. Where in the world is Island Sanctuary? In patch 6.2, like they told us it would be. And we'll be hearing about it when the next live letter happens, which is going to be about patch 6.2. We haven't heard about it because the patch that it's coming in hasn't happened yet. and doesn't happen for another like 4 months. So, patience. It's a strong thing. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Good morning, Happy. Hope all is well and that you, your girlfriend, and your mischievous cats are having a great day. Yeah, as you can see from the tail dangling over my head, mischievous is the right word. I have 2 questions for you. Been trying to see if I can even start doing some ultimates. Seems to be an unwritten rule to have at least cleared all savage content of the current tier. No, that's something you need to do for Dragon Song Reprise, but that's not an unwritten rule for previous ultimates by any capacity. Even though your ultimates sink down your item load, such as Uwu and Ukam. Yeah, that's not an unwritten rule. That's not a written or unwritten rule anywhere that I've seen. That's just a degree of interest. I will say, if you have no rating background whatsoever, you've never done a Savage tier while it's current, I would not even begin to think about doing ultimate. I would definitely recommend you do the current tier to become more acclimated with rating in the game first. Also, I've been trying to find a stat to clear this tier, but maybe I'm a little too late. It's difficult. The next statics that are really going to be forming are, not that they won't work on the current tier, but they really are looking towards the next tier already. So it would be tough, not undoable, but it is going to be tough for you to find a group. But they're out there. They're recruiting. I see groups recruiting for P1, P2, full fresh prog, full. I see it in the Ether party finders at least. So if you're looking closely enough, you should be able to find it. But don't be too surprised if you end up not finding something until closer to 6.2. All right, it looks like this is actually the last question. We will not need a lightning round in this episode. Hashtag MHM, that's Mondays with Mr. Happy, or Mr. Happy Mondays. It could be either. We'll never know. Sup, Haps? Hi. Before I get to my question in response to your ultimate plans, Rich Madge. It's funny, 2 comments down I can see under this says the exact same thing. Anyway, with the success of Crystalline Conflict, it's become my favorite and not favorite content to grind. Do you see PvP getting more active or dedicated events going forward? There are tournaments every now and then. They're all community driven. There doesn't seem to be a central place to view them. I mean, right now there's the Wolves League for Ether that's being run by +1. I actually did some shoutcasting for them just this past weekend, and it was great. It was a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and some really, really good teams, some really high tier play. So that was a big thing that I enjoyed. As for something on official capacity, I'd expect 1 major international tournament per expansion. Damn, Aloha, that kick off still really hurts. It's very, very sensitive around here. I'm one of those people that can't help but touch the area where I would say, oh yeah, Aloha, you coming down for more? Yeah, hey, leave Alpha alone. You already knocked down the other 2 Alphas. Where are you going? You leaving? You done with me? Or are you coming down to complain? What's the plan? What's the plan? We're at the end of the video here, Aloha. What's the plan? But that's how much I would expect something official for the time being. They may express increased interest in running official events just based on the participation, but that's TBD. We're in kind of uncharted waters here with people liking PvP in Final Fantasy 14. So it's we don't really know where to go from here with it. So as long as the community builds it up, keeps it built up, and supports it, we'll probably see an increased interest from them in hosting official events. We may see something more frequent per region, but right now I would expect 1 major event, if anything at all, event per expansion, just based on previous times they have held tournaments and stuff. But that's actually the last question for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy, and a pretty good length episode at that. Sorry to the questions I did not feel like I had good responses for. That's on me, but if I can't give you something insightful, then I don't see how my answer's valuable to you. So apologies for that. Anyway, thank you for watching this week's episode. If you have a question, ask it in the comment section of the video below, and I'll see you next week for another Q&A. Anyway, with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Take care. You can go to the next video now. Just watch one of mine. It'll be great. Maybe not. You can do it anyway.